The Minnesota Vikings have had a very good year relative to the expectations placed on them entering the season just a few months ago, and rookie head coach Kevin O'Connell led the team to a 10-2 start and completely changed the culture of a locker room that needed it in the worst way. Unfortunately for the Vikings, as I record this video, all three losses have been by double digits, and two of those losses weren't just a typical close loss where a couple of things didn't go their way. The Week 2 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles, in which they lost 24-7 at Lincoln Financial Field, and the Week 11 loss to the Dallas Cowboys, in which they were embarrassed on their home turf to the tune of a 40-3 loss. The Vikings have won a lot of games, and for the signature win crowd, they got their signature win in what was deemed the game of the year over the Buffalo Bills with a 33-30 overtime win. But for all of the good things the Vikings have done in 2022, their future is extremely concerning. And there is a lot to dive into in today's video. And before we get started, I did want to say the only thing better than football Sundays is football Sundays with the DraftKings Sportsbook. I am excited to be partnering with DraftKings, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. This deal for new customers is unreal, and you can win $150 in free bets when you sign up using my code ANALYSIS and bet at least $5 on any pregame moneyline wager. If your bet hits, the $150 in free bets is yours. So in Week 15, you can bet $5 on Kansas City to beat Houston, and the $150 is yours. And guys, that sounds like a great deal to me. Again, that's using code ANALYSIS, and a big thank you to DraftKings for sponsoring today's video. As a Vikings fan myself, the first thing I want to say is I'm not going to nitpick wins or claim they got lucky or any of the other things the media tries to do to downplay their accomplishments. But what genuinely concerns me regarding their future is how bad their defense is. And not just how bad their defense is, but the fact that this defense was supposed to be the defense that went all in for a Super Bowl push. And this team has double-digit wins and will get to the postseason. That was the goal entering the year. Get to the postseason for a team that hasn't made the playoffs this decade. But they have given up the most yards out of any team in the NFL. They've had 7 300-yard passers against them, and the defense has played the third most snaps in the entire NFL. The defense playing the third most snaps is a very big deal, because the difference between them and the Washington Commanders, the team that has played the least defensive snaps in the league, is 96 plays, and 96 plays is more than a game's difference. So for a team that has postseason aspirations with a not good defense already, well, they're going to head into the postseason worn down, and not to mention something else that concerns me regarding their future, old. 5 of the 11 defensive starters are 30 or older and are not getting any younger. Za'Darius Smith was the NFC Defensive Player of the Month in October, but times have changed and he has gone 4 straight games without a sack. Danielle Hunter has a single sack in the past 4 games, and for 2 guys who are supposed to be the premier pass rushers, this is their time to shine. And in the last 4 games, the Vikings have also allowed 3 300-yard passers. Now, for clarity, I'm not associating Danielle and Za'Darius not getting sacks as the sole reason for giving up an astronomical amount of passing yards, as much as it is to say the entire defense has been abysmal. But wait, there's more. You would think the Vikings have a lot of depth with draft picks or young players ready to step in, but that's not exactly the case. Lewis Cine was their first-round pick this year, who unfortunately suffered a season-ending injury back in Week 4 against the Saints. It was gruesome, and I'm not going to show it, but I don't think there should be this belief that, well, the Vikings will have a safety next year and Cine come back and play at a high level. Sure, you would like that to happen, but that's not a guarantee. Corner Andrew Booth was their second-round pick and was injured to start the year and has only played in 2 games. Per PFF, he was targeted 15 times combined in those games and gave up 13 catches for 152 yards, and opposing quarterbacks had a passer rating of 108.9 when targeting him. And I get not all rookie corners are going to come in and play well, as aside from quarterback, corner is the most difficult position to learn or to translate to at the next level, and it makes sense. You're going up against the best of the best. And guys like Sauce Gardner and Tariq Woolen this year are exceptions and not the standard. And to at least be fair to Andrew Booth here, he missed a lot of time at the beginning of the season, and his first 2 games were against Buffalo and Dallas, and he was matched up several times against Stephon Diggs and CeeDee Lamb. They had a second round pick in guard Ed Ingram, and guys, Ed Ingram has been awful. There's no way around it. Ed has given up 49 pressures on the year per PFF, and that is far and away the most out of any offensive lineman. The second most pressures allowed by an offensive lineman is 40. He's also given up 14 quarterback hits, tied for most in the NFL with, get ready for it, teammate Ezra Cleveland. And I'm not going to dog the Vikings for the entire video, as I do want to credit Kirk Cousins for playing through all of this. In years past, we've heard it all, from he can't win big games to he's not good under pressure, whatever the case may be. But Kirk in 2022 has been excellent under pressure and has stood in the pocket and taken hit after hit after hit and delivered more often than not. And as much as I love both tackles in Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill, both who could be multiple-time Pro Bowlers, and Brian already has one Pro Bowl to his name, the guard play is among the worst in the NFL. Ingram is also credited for giving up the second most sacks in the NFL with 9, and there hasn't been a game where he has allowed 0 pressures. The lowest he has given up in a game is 1, which he has done twice. So this isn't a defensive exclusive problem, and it's not just on the offensive line either. Justin Jefferson is one of, if not the best receivers in football, and if he wasn't on this team and wasn't leading the league in receiving yards as I make this video, because him and Tyreek Hill have went back and forth for the lead for a couple of weeks now, I genuinely do not know what this team's record would be. Dalvin Cook is not the same player he used to be, and it shows. His 2 biggest carries on the year were an 81-yard run in Buffalo, which very much helped the team get back in the game and start the 17-point comeback, and a 53-yard run against Miami, which helped seal the win for the Vikings. He has 950 rushing yards on the year for an average of 4.5 yards per carry. And if you take those 2 runs away, he would have 211 carries on the year for 816 rushing yards, which would equate to just 3.8 yards per carry. My point here isn't to take away from Dalvin or to discredit him, because he will go over 1,000 rushing yards for the 4th consecutive season, as much as it is to say he's getting paid an awful lot of money and is not the player he was 2 years ago. Not only that, but he isn't getting any younger, and his body isn't taking any less hits. His cap hit is over $14 million next year, while his dead cap is $6 million, so I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if we are witnessing Dalvin's last handful of games as a Viking. Then the question would be, well, who's going to replace him? Because Alexander Mattison is a free agent at the end of this year, and while I like Alex as a number 2 back and think he is good at his role, I don't think he should be the guy moving forward. And on top of it, you would have to pay him because his rookie contract is expiring. Obviously not to the level of what Dalvin's getting paid, but the point stands. So here's potentially another hole to fill this offseason. For all of the positions the Vikings have filled, like a number 1 receiver, like a tight end in TJ Hawkinson, like both tackles and quarterback as well, there's not a lot of promise in the other positions on the offense, and that also applies to the number 2 receiver behind Justin Jefferson. I don't want to be too critical of GM Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's first draft, because injuries are a part of the game, and it sucks that your top 2 picks, both of which were players selected in the top 50, got hurt and have played a combined 4 games so far, seen specifically with 2 defensive snaps on the year. But what I will be critical of is trading back not once but twice in the top 35 picks of the draft, both of which selected receivers that could very much help their team and hurt the Vikings. Those 2 players were when the Detroit Lions selected receiver Jamison Williams, whose first career catch was a 41-yard touchdown against the Vikings. The other was Packers receiver Christian Watson, who over the past month has 7 receiving touchdowns and is top 6 in the NFL in this category. It wasn't a secret heading into this year that Adam Thielen was going to turn 32 in August before the season started. It wasn't a secret that receiver was a need for this team, and the trade back with the Lions was not a good trade, as the Vikings lost trade value as they gave up a top 12 pick for the final pick in the first round, an early 2, and an early 3 for their first and second round picks. This is where I am critical of Kwesi. Losing trade value to a division rival who is very much on the rise, by the way, and it was pretty much like, oh, sure, you guys want to come up and get a receiver with speed you can't teach? Sure, here's the discount for the trade. For what it's worth, I'm not saying the Vikings should have drafted Jamison Williams number 12 overall, but they should not have accepted the trade offer they did. And in the NFL, teams draft and make decisions to beat the other teams in their division. And I feel like Kwesi dug himself into a hole he didn't need to by having the Lions and Packers both take receivers that ran sub 4.4 40s, and guys you are going to have to defend for quite some time. Patrick Peterson isn't going to play forever, Chandon Sullivan is on a 1-year deal, and your top corners heading into 2023 will be Cam Dantzler, Andrew Booth, and Caleb Evans. And this concerns me quite a bit. A unit the Vikings are going to have to completely revamp, and one that people may not realize is the linebacker position. Eric Hendricks will be 31 in February, and Jordan Hicks will be 31 next June. They selected a linebacker in the 3rd round this year in Brian Asamoah, and the big thing here, like with all of the young guys, is you can't expect these guys to come in after effectively sitting out for a year and to play at an all-pro caliber level in their first year starting. I also think they are soft up front, and in the losses to Dallas and Philly, they gave up over 150 yards rushing. And for the crowd that wants to take a leap from the 10-3 record to a Super Bowl conversation, 2 of the teams that Minnesota would probably have to encounter on their way to a Super Bowl appearance would be Dallas and Philly, 2 teams that beat them with a combined score of 64-10 in these 2 games. And that's not including San Francisco, who is an absolute unit. All 3 of these teams can run the football and well, and they can easily get a stop, score on the worst defense in the NFL, get another stop, and get up double digits pretty quickly, and before you know it, they are pinning their ears back with their elite pass rush, and the offensive line is put in an extreme disposition with the season on the line. In a lot of ways, the defense is old, slow, and has a hard time stopping other teams. And looking ahead a year or even 2 is a 1-year flip of the entire defense going to turn it around. I would say probably not, and that's a large reason why the Vikings' future scares me. The uncertainty and the thought process of flipping everything in 1 year. Being soft up front against teams like Philly and Dallas is not going to work, and it more than showed. Running an offense through Justin Jefferson is a bold strategy, and this team needs to address receiver early in the 2023 draft, because whether you guys know this or not, the free agent class is not strong at the receiver position, and an already aging Adam Thielen will be 33 next year. And Kirk Cousins, who has played pretty good for the most part in 2022, will be 35 next year. I'm not going to call for the replacement of Kirk Cousins, who is the franchise quarterback, nor would the Vikings, at least not this offseason, but the age is something to monitor. But with the pending revamp of the defense, no clear number 2 receiver, interior offensive line problems, and a GM who needs to have a good second draft, the once upon a time 10-2 Vikings future is not as bright as it once seemed. And it is unfortunate for Kwesi. A lot of his draft picks got hurt in year 1. But because of that, there's going to be a lot of pressure on him throughout the 2023 offseason and in the 2023 NFL draft. For the rest of 2022, I do think they will win a playoff game and lose in the divisional round of the playoffs. And based on seeding, my guess is they will play San Francisco in the divisional round of the playoffs. And guys, that will not be a good matchup for the Vikings. How will they address all of these pending holes is something I am very eager to see. And I can't wait to see how it all plays out. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as it would mean the world. And until next time, as always, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.